Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, the podcast that takes, those really dense academic papers and makes them surprisingly interesting. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita.
We've noticed a lot of you are tuning in, which is amazing, but I haven't quite hit that subscribe button yet.
Yeah, and that little button, honestly, it's so small, but it makes such a huge difference in helping us reach more people with these important discussions.
Right. It's true. Like the algorithms, those mysterious forces that decide what we all see and hear, they pay a lot of attention to subscriber numbers.
Yeah, think of it like the subscribing. It's like casting a vote for quality content, So these insightful research discussions don't just get lost in the sea of all the information out there.
More subscribers equals more visibility. Right. And that means more resources for us to make even deeper dives for you.
Yeah.
Maybe bring in experts for interviews, even do some live Q&A sessions where you can jump in.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about building a community around research,
Yeah.
where curiosity thrives and knowledge is like shared and debated. Okay, you ever get that feeling like when you're scrolling through social media and it's just post after post after post, and it's like every company is shouting at you, everyone's sharing everything, and it's just so hard to tell what's real, like what's actually coming from a real person and what's something else.
It's a lot.
It really is. So today we're going to cut through some of that noise and we're going to take a deep dive into a really interesting new thing that companies are doing. It's called firm generated user content, or FGUC for short.
Yeah. It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
FGUC.
Yeah, FGUC.
But it's basically companies trying to create content that looks like it's coming from everyday users like you and me,
right,
on social media.
It's like sneaking in through the back door.
Kind of, yeah. It's an interesting shift in how brands are connecting with us online.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to help us understand all of this, we've got a great source for this deep dive, a peer-reviewed article from the Journal of Marketing.
Oh, fancy.
Fancy.
Very academic.
Yeah. Well, we like to make sure we're bringing you the good stuff.
Absolutely.
And the article is called Putting Words in Their Mouths: Firm-Generated User Content and Consumer Sharing Behavior. It's by Beck and colleagues and published in 2025.
So very recent research.
Very recent.
Yeah.
Yes. So this isn't just like some random blog post.
Right, exactly. This is legit.
This is legit research. This is the real deal.
Yeah.
So today we really want to kind of break down what is FGUC, why are companies doing it, does it actually work, what kind of content are they creating, and what does it mean for you as a consumer?
And for all of us who are constantly on these platforms.
Yeah, like are we being tricked? Are we falling? We're going to get into all of that.
All those questions.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Firm-generated user content. I mean, it sounds a little like a joke.
It does, right? Like, what is that?
Can you just explain it? Like, I'm 5. What is this?
All right, so imagine a company, like let's say you buy something online.
Okay.
And right when you check out, they give you a little box that says, hey, share this on Twitter. And they have a pre-written message already there for you.
Oh, like, I just bought this awesome thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I'm so excited. And it has a link to the product and maybe a hashtag.
So the company is basically like writing the tweet for me.
Yeah, they're giving you a template to share.
Interesting.
And that's FGUC. It's content the company made, but it's designed for you to share as if it was your own original thought.
So it's different from like, when I see an ad on Instagram from a company.
Right. That's just straight up advertising.
That's their own content.
Yeah, that's firm-generated content. We call that FGC. They're just putting their message out there.
But this is sneakier. It's like they're trying to make it look like it's coming from regular people.
Yeah, it's kind of blurring the lines.
So it's different from like, when my friend posts about a new restaurant they tried.
Right. That's authentic user-generated content, UGC. That's truly coming from them.
And it's valuable to companies because we trust our friends more than we trust brands.
Yeah, word of mouth is powerful.
So FGUC is this middle ground.
Exactly. It's like a hybrid.
Okay, so can you give me some real life examples? I think that would really help me understand this better.
Okay, so think about a site like Vivid Seats.
Okay, I use Vivid Seats.
Yeah, you buy tickets for a concert.
Like Jerry Seinfeld ticket.
Perfect example. You finally snag those Jerry Seinfeld tickets and bam, they hit you with share your excitement, tweet this. And then they have a pre-written tweet all ready to go, something like, scored tickets to see Jerry Seinfeld. Can't wait. Link to Vivid Seats.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I have seen that.
Right. So seamless.
Yeah, and you're already excited about the ticket, so you're like, yeah, I will share this.
Exactly. You're in a good mood. You're more likely to just click share without even thinking about it.
It's brilliant, but also a little manipulative.
It is a little bit, but it's clever.
Okay, what's another example?
The IMDb app.
I love IMDb.
Me too. So you just watched a movie, let's say the new Avatar sequel.
Okay.
You loved it. You give it 5 stars, and then boom, IMDb suggests share your rating. Tweet this. And it's like, just saw Avatar 3 and loved it. 5 stars, hashtag IMDb link to the movie.
Wow, I do that all the time. I never even thought about it.
See? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
The article even have a figure 1 that shows a bunch of examples on like purchase confirmation pages, emails from retailers, even within apps.
So it's not just limited to social media.
No, it's like any online interaction.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Okay, so now that we know what FGUC is, let's get into the why. Why are companies doing this? What's the point?
I mean, it seems like extra work, right?
Yeah, totally. Like, why not just stick to regular ads?
But what the big goal is to get people talking about their brand online, but in a more organic way.
They want to control the narrative.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
They're hoping that these seemingly organic mentions will influence how people feel about their brand.
So it's all about perception.
Exactly. It's about creating positive buzz and hopefully driving sales.
Because we all know that word of mouth marketing is like the holy grail.
Oh, yeah. It's super powerful.
Yeah.
If your friend recommends something, you're way more likely to check it out than if you just saw an ad for it.
Exactly, because we trust our friends.
And FGUC is trying to tap into that trust by making it look like the recommendations are coming from real people.
It's like a shortcut.
It is a shortcut.
So it's kind of like influencer marketing, but without having to pay influencers?
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Interesting.
Plus, it's potentially way cheaper than traditional influencer campaigns, which can cost a lot.
Yeah, those influencers know their worth.
They do. And with FGUC, you're not paying for each individual post. You're just creating the system that encourages people to share.
So you set it up once and then it just kind of runs itself.
In theory, yeah. You're leveraging the technology you already have. Your website, your app, your email system.
Clever.
Plus, there's a ton of people on social media. The article mentions that there are billions of users worldwide.
Yeah, it's a huge audience.
It's massive.
Right.
And people are sharing more content than ever.
So it's like a gold mine for companies if they can figure out how to tap into it.
Exactly. And FGUC is one way to try to steer that sharing in a direction that benefits them.
It's all about making it as easy as possible for people to share.
Exactly. And that's where the psychology comes in. By providing a ready-made message, they're reducing the effort involved in sharing.
We're all lazy.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you give people a pre-written tweet, they don't have to think about what to say. They just click a button.
It's like the easy button of marketing.
Kinda.
Yeah.
They're playing into our desire for convenience.
Interesting. So does this actually work? Like, do people really share more when they're given these pre-written messages?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is.
And luckily, the researchers actually tested this. They did a couple of studies to see if FGUC actually leads to more sharing.
Okay, tell me about the studies. What did they do?
So study 1A was a field experiment. They partnered with a local gym.
A gym.
Yeah. They emailed their members, and they split them into 2 groups randomly.
Okay.
One group got an email that just said, hey, tell us what you think about the gym on Twitter. You know, just a general request.
Right.
The other group got an email with a pre-written tweet. It said something like, I love working out a gym name, great equipment, and friendly staff linked to gym's Twitter.
So one group had to come up with their own tweet, and the other group was given a tweet ready to go.
Exactly. And then they tracked how many people actually click through to Twitter from each email.
Oh, what happened?
Well, the results were pretty clear. The group that got the pre-written tweet had a much higher sharing rate,
How much higher?
like 5 times higher. It was 2.1% versus 0.4%.
Wow. That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. And statistically speaking, that difference was significant, meaning it wasn't just random chance. It was very likely due to the FGUC.
Okay, so that's pretty compelling evidence that giving people a ready-made message does increase sharing.
Yeah. Study 1A was a real-world test.
What about the other study?
Study 1B was a lab experiment. They had people watch a movie trailer and then ask them if they would share it on Twitter.
Okay.
Again, they had 2 groups. One group got a blank tweet box, just an empty space to write whatever they wanted. The other group got a pre-written tweet that said something like, this new movie looks amazing. Check out the trailer. Link to trailer.
And what happened there?
They saw the same pattern. The group with the pre-written tweet shared it way more often.
So both studies showed that FGUC really does increase sharing.
Yeah, it seems to be effective.
But why? Why does this work? Is it just because it's easier?
Well, that's part of it, but the researchers dug a little deeper. They wanted to understand the psychology behind it.
I love that they're getting into the psychology.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So they came up with 2 main mechanisms to explain why FGUC works. Ease and incongruence.
Okay, I get that. it's easier to share something if it's already written for you.
Right. We're all busy. We're all looking for shortcuts.
We're cognitive misers, the article calls us.
Yeah, basically we try to conserve our mental energy whenever possible.
Makes sense.
So the easier something is to do, the more likely we are to actually do it.
So ease is a good thing for companies using FGUC.
Yeah, it's a positive force. It encourages sharing.
What about incongruence? That doesn't sound so good.
Incongruence happens when the suggested content doesn't match your actual experience.
Oh, like if I had a terrible meal at a restaurant, but they give me a tweet that says, best meal ever.
Exactly. That would feel really inauthentic.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to share that.
And that's the problem with incongruence.
Yeah.
It can create this negative feeling that makes people less likely to share.
So companies have to be careful with the content they're suggesting.
Right. They have to make sure it aligns with how people actually feel.
Otherwise, it could backfire.
Exactly.
So ease versus incongruence. It's like a balancing act.
It is. And this is where customer satisfaction comes into play.
Okay. How does satisfaction fit into all of this?
Well, the researchers did a few more studies to see how satisfaction affects the effectiveness of FGUC.
Interesting.
In study 2, they looked at how likely people were to say they would share different kinds of FGUC.
Like positive, negative, neutral?
Exactly. They had 3 levels: neutral, positive, and very positive. And they found that if someone was already satisfied with a product or service, they were much more likely to say they would share positive or very positive FGUC.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if they were dissatisfied, that very positive FGUC actually made them less likely to want to share.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like it just highlighted the gap between their experience and the suggested content.
Yeah, it made the incongruence even more obvious.
Exactly.
And what about neutral FGUC?
Neutral FGUC didn't really do much for anyone. It wasn't positive enough to excite the satisfied customers, and it wasn't negative enough to resonate with the dissatisfied customer.
So it's just kind of meh.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so it seems like matching the sentiment of the FGUC to the customer's actual experience is really important.
Yeah, it's crucial.
Yeah.
And studies 3A and 3B really dug into those feelings of ease and incongruence based on satisfaction.
Okay, what did they find?
Well, they found that for satisfied customers, FGUC increased sharing because it was easy. But for dissatisfied customers, FGUC was more likely to decrease sharing because it felt inauthentic.
So it all comes back to ease and incongruence.
Exactly. And satisfaction moderates those effects.
So for companies, it's like they need to know how their customers are feeling before they start pushing out FGUC.
Yeah, it's about being strategic and targeted.
Makes sense. Okay, so now we know that FGUC can increase sharing, but what about the actual content that gets shared? Does FGUC influence what people say?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and the researchers looked at that too.
What did they find?
Well, in study 3B, they actually analyzed the words that people said they would share.
Like the specific text of the tweets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they found that when people were given positive FGUC, the stuff they said they'd share tended to be more positive than if they're just sharing their own thoughts.
So the FGUC was actually influencing the sentiment of the shared content.
Yeah, it was acting as a kind of anchor.
Anchoring.
Yeah, like the first piece of information you get can kind of set the tone for how you think about something.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So if the FGUC is positive, it might make people more likely to focus on the positive aspects of their experience, even if they weren't 100% thrilled.
Exactly. It's like it subtly guides their thinking.
That's fascinating.
They even saw this a little bit with dissatisfied customers. The stuff they said they'd share wasn't as negative as it might have been otherwise.
So the FGUC was kind of softening their negativity.
Kind of, yeah. It's like it was nudging them towards a more positive outlook.
Wow. So even though dissatisfied customers might be less likely to share overall, the stuff they do share might not be as damaging as companies might fear?
Exactly. The risk of a huge backlash might be lower than you think.
That's good news for companies.
Yeah. But of course, you can never completely eliminate the risk of someone going rogue and posting something really negative.
Right.
But overall, the research suggests that the potential benefits of FGUC might outweigh the risks, especially if you're careful about how you use it.
Okay, so to wrap up, what are the key takeaways for companies thinking about using FGUC?
I would say the biggest takeaway is that FGUC can be a really effective way to increase positive word of mouth, especially among satisfied customers.
So if you have happy customers, make it easy for them to share their good experiences.
Exactly. And positive or highly positive FGUC seems to work best. Neutral FGUC, not so much.
And even if you have some unhappy customers out there, The risk of them using FGUC to blast you online doesn't seem to be that high.
That's what the research suggests.
But it's still important to be mindful of how satisfied your customers are and to make sure the content you're suggesting feels authentic.
Right. You don't want to come across as tone deaf or manipulative.
And maybe even think about segmenting your customers and tailoring your FGUC efforts based on their level of satisfaction.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Okay, so for you, the listener out there, now that you know about FGUC, does it change how you view social media? Will you be more skeptical of those glowing reviews and enthusiastic posts?
It's definitely something to think about.
Are we all being manipulated?
Maybe a little.
It's a powerful tool, and it's important to be aware of how it's being used.
Absolutely. As consumers, we need to be savvy and critical.
And for companies, it's about using this power responsibly.
Exactly. Transparency and authenticity are key. And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.